Leela's heart pounded in her chest as she stepped through the grimy, flickering doors of the black market auction house. The space station was a place of endless steel, harsh lights, and 1,000 smells of old metal and synthetic food. But the auction hall was something else entirely. It was a world of its own. Hidden beneath the glimmer of corporate promises and military surveillance, Leela wasn't supposed to be here. Not anymore. She had once been a well-known trader, a rising star in the station's merchant circles, making deals with rare goods from across the galaxy. But that was before everything fell apart. A series of poor investments, an attack by pirates, and some bad luck had drained her accounts. Now she had nothing left but a few credits and a determination to make one last gamble. Her eyes scanned the room, taking in the crowd of buyers and the creatures on display. Alien species, some strange and terrifying, others peaceful and bewildering, were all lined up like commodities, ready to be sold to the highest bidder. Leela knew this world well. She had been on the other side, selling rare items and exotic goods. But today, she was here to do the unthinkable, to buy. Her fingers curled tightly around the last of her credits. The only money she had left. If she could do this, if she could buy the aliens she had heard about, she might be able to change everything. Maybe, just maybe, she could find a way to rebuild her life. The auctioneer, a tall man with a voice that seemed to echo through the chamber, raised his hand to signal the start of the bidding. Next up, he called, a specimen of the rare Keleth species once believed to be extinct. This one, he motioned to a dark corner of the stage where a lone figure stood, is said to hold powers unlike any other. Leela's breath caught in her throat. She had heard the rumors. The Keleth were a race of warriors, known for their strength and intellect. But their destruction had been swift, wiped out by a far more advanced alien race during a brutal war. If this alien was truly Keleth, could be worth a fortune, or it could be the key to something more. The figure moved slightly, revealing his face. He had sharp, angular features, skin the color of dark metal, and eyes that gleamed with an intensity that made Leela shiver. His gaze locked onto hers, as if sensing her presence across the room. She blinked, startled. His eyes were unlike anything she had ever seen. There was something ancient in them, something that called to her, even though she couldn't explain why. The auctioneer's voice snapped her from her trance. Bidding begins at 1,000 credits. Do I hear 1,000? The room hummed with murmurs. The crowd's interest seemed piqued, but no one made an immediate offer. The Keleth were dangerous, even if their kind was rare. Some buyers were hesitant, and Leela knew that the market was fickle. She could feel her pulse racing in her ears. This was her chance. Leela stepped forward, her hand trembling slightly as she raised her bid. 1,500 credits. The room fell silent. All eyes turned toward her. She could hear whispers and see the confusion on the faces of the other bidders. Who was this woman? What was she thinking? The auctioneer looked at her with a raised eyebrow, but then, without skipping a beat, he nodded. 10 Wubai credits. Any other bids? Leela didn't take her eyes off the alien. He stood perfectly still, his face unreadable, yet she could feel the intensity of his gaze. It was as if he knew exactly what she was about to do. No one else raised a bid. The auctioneer slammed his gavel down. Sold, to the lady in the front. A mixture of relief and excitement surged through Leela's body. She had one. She had bought the Keleth. But as the crowd began to disperse, whispers of disbelief filled the air. What did she plan to do with such a creature? He wasn't just any alien. He was a Keleth. His power could shake the foundations of entire star systems. She was just a woman with no wealth, no power, no connections. A man in a black suit approached her, his face cold and calculating. You do realize what you've just done? He asked, his voice low. That alien is not for someone like you. Ella met his gaze, refusing to back down. I've made my decision. I'm taking him. The man narrowed his eyes. Fine, he said, his tone dripping with condescension. But don't think for a second that you're done here. There will be consequences. He turned on his heel and walked away, leaving her alone with her prize. Leela's heart was still pounding in her chest as she approached the stage. The Keleth, the being she had bought for a price that had wiped out all her savings, stood there motionless. The auctioneer gestured for her to approach him, and she did. "You may take him now," the auctioneer said curtly. "But be careful. The Keleth aren't exactly known for their hospitality." Leela nodded, trying to steady herself. "I understand." The Keleth didn't move as she came closer. He was tall, easily a foot taller than her, and his body was covered in a sleek, metallic-looking armor that seemed to shift and shimmer with every movement. He wore it like a second skin. As she reached out to touch his arm, he stiffened. His eyes locked onto hers again, and this time, Leela could feel the weight of his gaze. It was intense, almost too intense, as if he was seeing straight through her. "You have bought me," he said, his voice like a deep rumble, echoing in her mind. Leela swallowed, feeling the weight of his words. "I did." He tilted his head slightly. "And now you are my ... bond." Leela blinked. "What do you mean?" "I didn't." He stepped closer, his form looming over her. "Keleth bonds are not given lightly. Once you save one of us, you are bound to us. Forever." Her stomach twisted in confusion. That's not how it works. "I didn't sign up for anything like that." His eyes softened, but only slightly. "It is the way of my people. You have freed me, and in return, I claim you." Leela took a step back, her heart racing. "No, I didn't. I didn't free you so you could claim me. I bought you to set you free, not to be ... yours." He smiled, a small, almost imperceptible thing. "I am free, but you are now bound to me. This is the price you pay for saving a Keleth." Leela felt a mix of anger and confusion bubbling up inside her. She hadn't expected this. She had just wanted to help him. She hadn't thought through the consequences. Before she could respond, a loud voice interrupted. "Enough." It was the auctioneer again, his voice sharp. "You two need to leave. The deal is done." Leela turned toward the exit, still reeling from the strange turn of events. As she stepped through the door, she felt the Keleth move behind her, its presence looming like a shadow. The universe was not done with her yet, and neither was he. Leela couldn't shake the strange feeling that lingered in the air. The moment she had left the auction house, her life seemed to shift. Zarathor, this alien, this Keleth walked behind her, his towering presence heavy with an unknown promise. She had bought him. But what did that mean? She glanced over her shoulder, trying not to show her unease. Zarathor's silent footsteps were a reminder that something had changed. Something deep. As they moved through the narrow corridors of the space station, the usual noises of the station, the hum of the engines, the chatter of traders seemed to fade into the background. It was as if the world was holding its breath. Leela was used to being alone. She had grown up on this station, learning the ways of trade and survival. But this was something else entirely. Zarathor's dark eyes never left her. His gaze was intense, as if he could see everything, every fear, every thought. "Are we going to your quarters?" he asked, his voice deep and resonant. Leela paused. She had to think. "Yes," she replied, unsure if she was answering the question or just trying to find a place to hide from the confusion growing inside her. "I don't have much. Just a small room. But it's mine." "I will follow you," Zarathor said, his tone final, as if there were no other option. They reached her quarters, a small, dimly lit room at the lower levels of the station. The walls were bare, save for a few old posters and scattered belongings that spoke of a life once full of promise. The only piece of furniture was a worn-out couch and a small table. Leela had never cared much about decorating. She just needed a place to sleep, and this room served its purpose. Zarathor stepped inside, its presence overwhelming the small space. He was larger than life itself, standing with an elegance that made the cramped quarters feel even smaller. Leela placed her bag down on the table and exhaled. "I don't have much, but this is what I can offer." Zarathor didn't seem to care about the lack of comfort. His gaze flicked over the room, but he remained silent. There was something about him that made Leela feel like she had stepped into an ancient world, where rules and customs were beyond her understanding. "Thank you for your kindness," Zarathor said, his voice soft, though still carrying the weight of his presence. "But you should know this bond is not one you can escape." Leela froze. Her heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" "You saved me," Zarathor continued, stepping closer to her, his eyes fixed on hers. "And in doing so, you have claimed me. In the eyes of my people, you are now my ... bond." Leela felt a strange mix of anger and confusion rising inside her. "No, I didn't save you so you could claim me. I bought you. I rescued you from that auction because I thought you were in danger, not because I wanted ... this." Zarathor's expression softened, but only for a moment. "It is the way of my people. The Keleth do not exist without bonds. When one is saved, the one who saves them becomes their protector, their bond." Leela shook her head, trying to make sense of it all. "That's insane. I'm not some kind of ... servant. I didn't ask for this." Zarathor seemed unfazed. "It is not servitude. It is honor." Leela walked to the small window of her room, looking out at the cold, distant stars. The station was a fortress in the void of space, but it felt suffocating now, as if the walls were closing in around her. "Honor," she repeated bitterly. "You don't get to decide what honor is. I'm not your ... bond." "I didn't decide," Zarathor said calmly. "This is the way it is. The Keleth cannot exist alone. We are bound to those who save us, who give us the chance to live. You chose to save me. Now you are my bond." Leela turned to face him, her chest tight. "But I didn't choose that. I didn't choose you. I only wanted to help." Zarathor looked at her, his expression unreadable. "And yet you have chosen..." She was about to argue again, when the sound of a loud knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Her heart raced. Who could be here? Before Leela could speak, Zarathor moved swiftly to the door, his hand resting lightly on the handle. He was so fast, it was almost as if he had anticipated the knock. "Who is it?" Leela called, trying to sound calm. "It's me," came a rough voice from the other side. "I need to talk to you." Leela's stomach turned. She recognized the voice. It was Tarek, one of her old contacts from the black market. He was trouble. Always had been. Zarathor glanced at her, his face unreadable. Without waiting for her response, he opened the door. Tarek stood in the doorway, his expression momentarily startled by Zarathor's towering form. "What the hell is this?" Tarek spat, his eyes narrowing as he took in the sight of the Keleth. "You didn't tell me you were getting one of those? It's dangerous, you know. People are looking for him." "I don't need your advice," Leela replied coldly, stepping forward to block Tarek's view of the room. "What do you want, Tarek?" Tarek smirked, but there was a flicker of concern in his eyes. "I just wanted to remind you that you're in over your head. The Keleth aren't a pet. They're a weapon. And people like us, we can't afford to have something that dangerous walking around. You should have left him to rot at the auction. Now look what you've done." Zarathor stepped forward, his voice deep and commanding. "I am no one's weapon." Tarek's eyes widened, and for a moment, he seemed unsure of how to respond. "You can't just walk away from something like this, you know? There are people who would pay a fortune to get their hands on him." "Not selling him," Leela said, her voice firm. "I bought him for myself. To free him, and that's all there is to it." Tarek's lips curled into a sneer. "You're playing with fire, Leela. Be careful. Not everyone in this station is as charitable as you." Tarek didn't wait for a response. With a last glance at Zarathor, he turned and left, the door slamming shut behind him. Leela exhaled, leaning against the wall. She didn't need more problems. Not right now. But something told her that Tarek was right. There were dangerous people out there. People who wouldn't hesitate to come after Zarathor. Zarathor remained silent, watching her carefully. "He is right," he said finally, his voice low. "There are many who would see me dead or captured. The Keleth are powerful, but we are hunted." Leela felt a shiver run down her spine. She had known there would be consequences, but she hadn't fully realized the weight of them until now. "What should we do?" she asked, her voice small. Zarathor's gaze softened, and for the first time, there was a hint of something almost comforting in his eyes. "We prepare. You saved me. Now, I will protect you. And together, we will survive." Leela nodded slowly, though doubt lingered in her mind. She hadn't chosen any of this, but it seemed that the universe had chosen for her. As the night wore on, Layla sat on her couch, Zarathor standing watch by the window. She had no idea what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain: her life would never be the same again. Lila sat up straight, the soft hum of the station's engines vibrating through the walls of her small quarters. She had barely slept, her mind racing with everything that had happened over the past few days. Zarathor, the Kelith warrior she had bought at the auction, was standing by the window again. His dark figure silhouetted against the dim light filtering through the station's walls. The events of the past few days weighed heavily on her shoulders. Tarek's warning still echoed in her mind: people like us can't afford to have something that dangerous walking around. She had no idea who these people were, but she could feel the threat looming. Like a storm on the horizon, Zarathor had been quiet. Ever since their brief confrontation with Tarek, he had spent most of the time standing still, as though he was watching something beyond the stars. He seemed lost in his thoughts, his piercing gaze focused on something far away. But Leela couldn't help but notice that he was different now. There was an aura around him, a quiet strength that she hadn't fully understood before. Layla stood up and walked toward him, feeling the weight of the silence between them. She had to ask the questions that had been plaguing her for days. "Zarathor," she said softly, her voice uncertain, "what exactly is it that makes you so powerful? I know you're not just an ordinary alien, but I don't understand what you're capable of." He turned to her, his eyes deep and unreadable. "The Kelith are not like other species. We were once a mighty people known for our strength and our abilities. We could manipulate energy, bend the fabric of space, and control the forces that govern life itself." Layla blinked in surprise. "You can control energy?" Zarathor nodded slowly. "Yes, but those powers are not something we wield lightly. They are a part of us, a part of who we are. And when the Kelith were hunted down by the Croith, our enemies, much of our power was sealed away. Only a few of us remain. I am one of the last." Leela felt a chill run down her spine. She had no idea what she had gotten herself into, but she could sense the power that Zarathor carried within him. It wasn't just physical strength. It was something deeper, something that could change everything. "What happened to your people?" she asked softly. Zarathor's gaze grew distant. The Krolith were a ruthless race, a species that believed in domination above all else. They saw the Kelith as a threat to their control, and they wiped us out in a single, brutal war. They took our home, our civilization, ... and many of us were scattered across the galaxy. My people, we are in hiding." Lella's mind raced. "And you're the last?" He nodded. "Yes, I am the last of the Kelith warriors." A silence hung in the air, heavy with the weight of his words. Leela could feel the gravity of the situation, the enormity of what she had unknowingly stepped into. She had saved Zarathor from the auction, but now she understood that there was much more at stake than she could have ever imagined. "We need to get out of here," Layla said, determination flooding her voice. "If there are people after you, we can't stay on this station. It's not safe." Zarathor looked at her, his expression unreadable. "You do not fully understand, Layla. It is not just me they are after. They want you as well. The bond between us. It is a connection that can change the balance of the galaxy." Leela's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean? What kind of bond?" Zarathor's gaze softened, and for the first time, he seemed almost ... human. The Kelith bond is more than just a physical connection. It is a fusion of life forces, an awakening of power that links the two individuals together. When I was saved by you, that bond was formed. And in time, it will awaken something within you, something that will make you far more than just a bystander in this war. Leela felt her pulse quicken. "What are you talking about? I'm just a human. I don't have powers." Zarathor stepped closer to her, his presence overwhelming. You do, Layla. The bond between us has already begun to awaken your potential. You have only begun to understand what you are capable of. Layla stepped back, her mind spinning. She was no hero. She was just a woman who had made a mistake. Someone who had tried to do the right thing by saving an alien, who was far more dangerous than she ever could have known. I'm not ready for this, she whispered. Zarathor's voice was firm, but not unkind. None of us are ready for the things we must face. But we do not have the luxury of time. The Krolith will come for us, whether we are prepared or not. The door to her quarters slid open suddenly, and Leela's hand instinctively went to her side, her fingers brushing the handle of the small blaster she kept hidden there. It was Tarek's face filled with urgency. Layla, we need to go, he said, his voice low. I've seen the Krolith ships. They're already on their way. They've found out you've got the Kelith, and they're not going to stop until they have him. And you. Leela's heart raced. She had hoped to avoid this confrontation, but it seemed inevitable now. Where do we go? She asked, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. Tarek glanced at Zarathor. The best chance we have is to get off this station and find the hidden fleet. There's a group of resistance fighters who've been working to free the last of the Kelith. If we can make it to them, we'll have a chance. Zarathor nodded. You are right. We must leave, and we must leave now. Layla turned to face him, her mind made up. Then let's go. They didn't waste time. Layla grabbed her bag, quickly stuffing a few essential items inside credits. A few tools and a small emergency communicator. She didn't know where they were going, but she trusted Zarathor and Tarek. The time for hesitation was over, as they made their way through the dark corridors of the space station. The tension in the air was palpable. They moved quickly, trying to avoid detection, but Layla knew it wouldn't be long before the Krolith ships arrived. They had to get to the hidden fleet before it was too late. The station's emergency lights flickered as alarms began to sound. The Krolith were here. Zarathor's hand rested on her shoulder, a silent promise that he would protect her. She felt the bond between them growing stronger, an energy that seemed to pulse through her veins, urging her forward. She didn't know how to explain it, but she felt stronger, more alive than she had ever felt before. We're almost there, Tarek said, his voice tight with anxiety. Just a little further. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway, and Leela's heart raced. They were close. The Croath were closing in on them. Suddenly, a group of heavily armed soldiers rounded the corner, blocking their path. The Krolith had arrived. Zarathor stepped forward, his eyes flashing with power. Stay behind me, he commanded, his voice low but full of authority. Layla could feel the energy building in the air. The Krolith soldiers raised their weapons, but before they could fire, Zarathor extended his hand, and the room seemed to freeze. A wave of energy shot out from him, knocking the soldiers back with force. Layla gasped as she felt a surge of power within herself, as if the bond between her and Zarathor had unlocked something inside her. She wasn't just a bystander anymore. She was part of this fight. Together, they fought their way through the Krolith soldiers. Zarathor, leading the charge, and Layla following, her newfound power guiding her every move. The battle was fierce, but they fought with everything they had. Finally, they reached the hidden fleet, a collection of ships, hidden away in a secret bay. The resistance fighters were waiting, ready to take on the Krolith. Zarathor turned to Layla, his gaze filled with respect. You have done more than you know, Leela. The bond between us is only the beginning. Together, we can bring the Kelith back. Layla smiled, feeling a sense of purpose that she had never known before. Then let's make sure we're ready for whatever comes next. The war was just beginning, but for the first time, Layla felt like she was finally where she was meant to be.